Hey, how's it going? So I think for a lot of you, this will probably be the first video on our channel that you're watching. So little introduction first. My name is Drew. I'm one half of this City Blades thing. And how it came together was about 3 years ago, I was a rollerblader who discovered ice dance and absolutely fell in love with it. And around that time, I met my now very good friend Brock, who was an ice dancer who had just discovered rollerblading and absolutely fell in love with it. So yeah, over the past 3 years, we've sort of come together and really made a go at this blurring the lines between figure skating and rollerblading thing, taking elements from each and combining them into this new sort of discipline. So how this video is going to break down is me being the more rollerbladery rollerblader. I'm going to talk about some of the hardware, the tech, and stuff like that. And then Brock, being the much more competent ice skater, is going to talk about some technique and stuff like that. So things you may notice or may need to keep in mind when you're making this transition. So let's get started. So the first decision you're going to have to make is whether you're going to go with quote unquote regular rollerblades. These are my beloved Sebatrix 2s. I love them. Or something like this. These are my old pick frames. I don't currently have them mounted to anything. So big advantages to the pick frames is, of course, you have this toe pick. So if you want to work on your 1 foot spins, your toe jump, stuff like that, you absolutely need a toe pick to do that sort of thing. Disadvantages would be that they are not really conducive to, sort of urban recreational skating, stuff like that, really at all. If you take them on a bike path, you're not going to have a very good time. Back to the alternative, the quote-unquote regular rollerblades. Big advantages of these is if you want to skate around your city or your neighborhood, whatever it is, these are going to be much, much more conducive to that. You can still do all your footwork, all your moves in the field, 3 turns, brackets, etc. But you will benefit from a much more robust boot and larger wheels, which are just going to allow you to travel faster. Plus, you don't have the toe pick in front, so you're not going to be tripping over sticks, rocks, etc. Nearly as much. So the next most important thing is going to be making sure you're on a rockered setup. This is what we call a rockered setup, meaning that these outer 2 wheels are a little bit higher off the ground than these middle 2. And this will just make your transition to inline much easier. You'll be able to turn and maneuver yourself and do all your moves and stuff much more closely to the way that you're used to doing them. And this rocker can be achieved in a few ways. A lot of skates will come with these outer 2 axles just up a little bit from these middle 2. So you can use the same size wheel, and just by default, it'll be set up like this. Some skates, however, will come with a flat setup. So this is like a flat setup, all 4 wheels touching the ground. This is not going to be super comfortable for you as a figure skater. You'll probably feel like you're on skis or train tracks or something like that. But if your skates come like this, you do still have some options. The cheapest and easiest way to get the rocker that you're after is just to get smaller wheels for the outside. So these are roughly 80 millimeters and these are about 76. So you want 4 millimeter smaller wheels on the outside in order to get 2 millimeters of rocker, which is a very good starting spot. You may down the line decide that you want maybe your front wheel to be even higher than that. So you could go down to like a 72 or something in the front. But just your standard 2 millimeters of rocker will be a good starting spot for you. So another important consideration when you're getting into this is going to be whether you want to go with a 4-wheel setup or a 3-wheel setup. So you can see with this 4-wheel setup, there's a nice curve we have going in here. We have, plenty of points of contact, and really the more points of contact you have, the more natural of a curve you're going to get. So following that logic, if we remove this wheel, we can see kind of what your general like a Snow White 3-wheel setup is going to look like. So you're going to be quite agile up here. This is around where your toe pick's going to be. It's going to be about right here. So when you get up on your toes, this would be a good emulation of the rocker that you have on your ice blade. However, from here to here, and let me even be a little bit closer, this giant wheelbase that we have right here, we consider this a wheelbase. The space from this wheel to this wheel is going to be very stable. So when you're landing jumps and stuff like that, it'll probably feel really good, because you'll have a nice stable base to fall back on. However, for doing, again, your moves, your brackets, your 3 turns, your counters, your rockers, etc., this is going to be not ideal at all. You have to think about the fact that stability and agility are sort of opposites of each other. So which one you choose is, again, going to be up to you. If you're a very tricky skater, you like to work on your jumps and spins, and that's kind of skating for you. A 3-wheel is probably going to be the way to go. However, if you're more into the dancey aspects of ice skating and you really want, as much maneuverability as you can get, 4-wheel is going to be absolutely the way to go. So the wheels that come on your skates are probably not going to be very good. I know when I got my pick frames, they came with indoor wheels they were like way too soft and the urethane wasn't very high quality, and then they just like not conducive to a good skating experience. So when you go to replace your wheels, there's a couple numbers you're going to concern yourself with. So this wheel, as you can see, says 68 millimeters and 85A. So 68 millimeters is, of course, the diameter. It's going to be the distance from here to here. However, this other number, this 85A, is a measure of hardness. So we have this dichotomy where harder wheels will wear slower, they'll roll faster, but they're not going to be as grippy as softer wheels. Likewise, softer wheels will be grippier, but they won't roll as fast, and they generally degrade a little bit faster. If you're exclusively skating on smooth surfaces, you can go down to, say, 78A without issue, and then you can get some really good grip. It's going to feel very good. However, if you have, any aspirations of, skating around the neighborhood or through a park or anything like that, you're going to shoot for something between 82 and 85A. So last bit to concern yourself with after you get your new skates will be frame alignment. So if you get these quote-unquote regular rollerblades, they're going to come with these frames centered on them, which unfortunately is not a good spot for most skaters. Most skaters tend to bend their ankles inwards when they skate. I don't know if it's to do with just your arches or what the deal is, but if you loosen the screw that's in the front of this and just nudge this towards your big toe, so to the inside of the skate about 4 millimeters, you'll have a much easier time maintaining edges. Likewise, if your ankles tend to collapse outward, you would loosen this front screw and adjust it out about 4 millimeters. And this is going to be true of any sort of boot and frame that you put together. So pick skates, snow whites, rollerblades, whatever it is, make sure that your alignment's on point. However, if you do go with something with a toe pick, and you'll have to forgive me for using this slalom boot. I don't have any ice boots right now that don't have blades on them. But you're going to have an additional concern, which is this front wheel right here. So ideally, you want this front wheel to be positioned right at the end of the ball of your foot, maybe a couple millimeters forward from that. The reason is, functionally, this front wheel is going to be the end of your blade. So if your blades are set too far back, you're going to be falling forward constantly. Likewise, if you get them set up too far forward, it's going to be very difficult to get up into spins the way that you're used to going. Okay, so that's it for my portion. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to toss it over to Brock, who's going to talk to you about technique and take a guy out for his first time on rollerblades.
So you're a figure skater, and you want to inline skate for the first time. Hey, let's go over some tips and tricks to not kill yourself the first day. As you go out the house, you should probably wear wrist guards.
No, but seriously, wear pads. So, going to take you through a couple of the pointers that we've been working on to say, hey, this is what you would need to go from ice to inline, and not necessarily just figure skating or hockey, but kind of if you're going to use a cityblades rocker and an inline skate setup, gearing away from the pick frame and stuff like that, you're going to want to probably know a couple of these pointers. And the first one always is wear pads. Like if you're trying something new, do not try to go out there and be the best you and wear no helmet, no wrist guards. Put the wrist guards on as a minimum. Elbow pads and knee pads kind of are a go-to. And helmet, if you're trying something new, just wear a helmet. One of the first things with being a figure skater is you probably want to be high in your knees a little bit through pushes and kind of, get that nice posture. Well, I kind of correlate inline skating more towards hockey skating or power skating. So you don't want to be high in the knees and have that perfect posture. You kind of want to stay down in the knees, give yourself that, hockey stance, kind of shoulders over knees, over toes, and then kind of a little bit of a press forward. You don't want to be too upright with too good a posture with a rockered setup, because you'll go right back over your heels. Pointing downhill is probably the funnest thing to do when you get comfortable, but really not a good idea when you first start off. So going around in circles is kind of what we're used to. So leaning from side to side should be a pretty easy concept. So those kind of leans turn into half swizzle pumps, which then turn into C-cuts. And using those to kind of as a means to gain power as well, going uphill or just when you're steady going down a trail, using those half swizzle pumps for power is a good way to start off. First thing that you're going to want to try to do, standing still, is getting into a 1 foot glide. Coming from hockey or figure skating, you guys have already trained plenty of 1 foot glide, 1 foot balance. But now that you're on a rocker and you're on a wheelbase, you may want to do that in a straight line first. Bend your knees over your toes so that you can get yourself, that knee flex into the toe, and then flexing the ankles from side to side so that you can feel the range of motion. Most inline skates are going to be a lot less tight than a figure skate or hockey boot, so just make sure that you are feeling that range of motion but not letting it go too far one way or another. For stopping, you should already feel comfortable standing on 1 foot. So instead of doing a T stop, you're going to do a T drag. So get your foot in a perpendicular position, get the foot a little bit separated from the skating foot, and then tilt the ankle down to the ground to get the wheelbase to drag on the ground. I like to use little C cuts, little leans from side to side to ready and slow myself down, and then at the very end use the T drag, especially going downhill for any kind of emergency stops. But eventually, knowing really good edge quality and C cuts, you'll be able to use that as a power slide or a hockey stop, and that should slow you down as well. Pushing is going to be a little straddled at first, but just know that the better that you get onto your 1 foot glides, the better you'll be able to collect your feet, be able to bend your knees in between every single push. So just make sure that you start off slow with your 1 foot balance. It may be a little bit of a straddle type push at first, but center your weight over your skating foot from side to side, and eventually it'll come back. Turns are going to be something that you're going to want to try right away, but biggest thing with turns is it's going to be a little more grippy, so you're not going to be able to glide through your turns as easily. So it's going to feel a little hoppy at first, but activating with good knee actions is the best way to get through from forward to backwards, backward to forwards, with a little bit more of a hop or a jump through your turns. And eventually, when you get your edges good, you'll feel the edge just like you would on ice. With crossovers and the underpush for it, it may feel like it's a little bit stuck in the mud, but as a dancer, I used to touch the ground before I would progress anyway. So doing an inline crossover like a dancer was pretty natural to me, touching the ground before I crossed over. For the underpush, it may feel like you're not really getting an underpush, and a lot of that is because of the ankle tilt, not just feeling comfortable tilting that ankle down towards the ground. So for inline crossovers to start, just make sure that you're transitioning your weight to the new foot a hair sooner so that you have time to tilt the underpush under. I also like doing a kind of cross in front push pump where you look like you're doing a crossover, but you're really just pumping the foot in front, doing the underpush quick, and then you go back to a 2 foot glide. This maneuver is really nice on trails to pick up speed when you only have one direction to push from, but alternating it to working in both directions is nice. Well, that concludes our introduction for ice to inline. For hockey skaters or figure skaters that are trying inline skating for the first time. We have a cross-training video down in the comments below if you want to check that one out. A little bit more conversation on my background and kind of the benefits that I've seen from doing inline skating and how I take that to ice skating. This is a time to kind of get out and explore the world and try new things. But we've been doing this for about 2 years now, so we have a whole slew of videos that kind of cover the different choreography points that we've been focusing on, but also just the skills that are required to get up to this point. So be sure to like and subscribe, and comment below on what you think and any comments that you have on our videos, and hopefully we'll see you out there.